The night began like any other until it didn't. A crowded gala glittered beneath chandeliers, laughter and champagne masking the quiet cruelty of the rich. And there she was, Eliza Brennan, the invisible girl in a borrowed uniform, balancing a tray of crystal glasses. Then a single accident, a spill, a splash of red, and every head turned, every head, except one. Across the room, he watched her, Adriano Costello, the man everyone feared to name aloud when he spoke. His voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Bring that girl to me." That command changed everything, pulling her from servitude into a world of loyalty, danger, and forbidden devotion, a story of power, redemption, and love that burns even in the shadows. Before we begin, if you believe that some destinies start with a single look, make sure to subscribe. It's free and helps us share more stories from Desire Tales. The champagne flutes clink softly against the silver tray as I weave through the crowd. My black uniform blended into the shadows between glittering gowns and tailored tuxedos. The Harrington Annual Charity Gala was in full swing. The grand ballroom of the Belmont Hotel transformed into a sea of wealth and influence I could only dream of. Crystal chandeliers scattered golden light across marble floors, and the air itself smelled of expensive perfume and privilege. "Excuse me," I murmured, though no one bothered to move. I was invisible to them, just another server, part of the background machinery that kept their evening flawless. My feet ached in the mandatory black heels, 6 straight hours of standing nearly unbearable. But I needed this job. The envelope back in my apartment, stamped with final notice from the hospital, wasn't going to pay itself. "Champagne, sir?" I offered the last flute on my tray to a portly gentleman who didn't even glance my way as he took it. His diamond cufflinks probably cost more than 6 months of my rent. "That's the last of them, Eliza," said Marco, another server passing with a stack of empty plates. "Mrs. Winters wants you to check on the VIP section. They're running low on the special reserve." I nodded, suppressing a sigh. The VIP section. The raised platform at the far end of the ballroom, roped off with velvet cords, guarded by men whose bulging jackets couldn't quite hide their holstered weapons. Security for the elite, and I'd been avoiding that area all night. "On it," I replied, tucking a stray strand of brown hair back into the tight bun required by our dress code. As I turned toward the service bar, my gaze drifted to the glass doors leading to the balcony. Just 5 minutes, I thought. Just 5 minutes to breathe air that isn't thick with wealth and judgment. Mrs. Winters, the event coordinator, was distracted talking to the hotel manager. The other servers were busy preparing dinner service, and no one would notice if I slipped away. The cool night air hit my face like a blessing outside. The city sprawled below, a glittering tapestry of lights against the darkness. For the first time all evening, my shoulders relaxed as I exhaled. "Shouldn't you be working?" The voice startled me, deep, accented with something I couldn't quite place. I spun around, nearly losing my balance on the polished stone floor. He stood in the shadows, tall, broad-shouldered, the ember of a cigarette glowing between his fingers. I couldn't see his face clearly, but everything about his posture radiated quiet power. Not one of the guests I'd served tonight. This man felt different. Something about him whispered danger. "I'm sorry, sir. I was just taking a moment to breathe," he finished for me, his voice unexpectedly gentle. "Don't apologize for being human." He stepped forward, and the soft light from the ballroom caught his features. My breath hitched. He was older than me, late 30s, maybe, with olive skin, dark hair swept back from a face that could have belonged in a Renaissance painting, strong jaw, straight nose, eyes so dark they seemed to absorb the light around them, and that scar, a thin white line running from his right temple to the corner of his mouth. Recognition hit me like lightning. Everyone in the city knew of him, or at least the whispers. Adriano Costello, the businessman whose empire stretched far beyond legitimate commerce, the man whose name was spoken in hushed tones, even among the elite inside. "I should get back," I managed, barely above a whisper. He nodded, taking another slow drag of his cigarette before extinguishing it with deliberate precision. "Of course." Then his eyes met mine, assessing, calculating. "What's your name?" Every instinct screamed not to answer. but refusing him felt impossible. Eliza. Eliza Brennan. Eliza, he repeated as if tasting it, committing it to memory. Go on then. Don't let me keep you from your duties. I slipped back inside, heart hammering against my ribs. The encounter left me shaken in a way I couldn't explain, as though something in my life had quietly shifted. A door opening I hadn't meant to touch. As I hurried toward the service bar to refill my tray with the special reserve champagne, the hum of the ballroom swallowed me once again, but beneath the glitter and laughter, I could still feel his gaze lingering in my mind, dark, unreadable, and unforgettable. I rushed to the service bar, filling my tray with flutes of the special reserve champagne, a vintage that cost more per bottle than I made in a week. The VIP section loomed ahead. 3 round tables surrounded by men in bespoke suits and women glittering in jewels. At the center table sat Adriano Costello, flanked by 2 men whose broad shoulders left no doubt they carried weapons beneath their jackets. He'd moved inside while I was gone. I approached cautiously, balancing the tray, a brittle smile plastered on my face. When I reached his table, I kept my eyes down, focusing on the gleaming surface and the hands that reached for the champagne-heavy rings, manicured nails, the faint scent of expensive cologne. Miss Brennan. My name in his mouth froze me in place. I looked up and met those dark eyes again. He remembered. Sir, I managed, trying to steady my breathing. You missed a spot. He gestured to the corner of his own mouth, mortified. I wiped at my face, feeling a smudge of lipstick come away. Thank you, I murmured. A ghost of a smile touched his lips there, then gone. I turned to leave, desperate to escape his presence, but disaster struck. The heel of my shoe caught in the plush carpet. I stumbled, the tray tilting dangerously, and watched in horror as one flute tipped, its golden contents spilling directly onto the lap of the woman beside Adriano Costello. You stupid girl, she shrieked, leaping to her feet as champagne soaked her crimson gown. Do you have any idea what this dress costs? The room went silent. Every eye turned toward us. Mrs. Winters was already hurrying over, her professional smile stretched thin. I'm so sorry, I gasped, setting down the tray, grabbing napkins. Please let me. Don't touch me. The woman slapped my hand away. She was beautiful in that cold, perfect way, blonde hair in an intricate updo, diamonds blazing at her throat. You're fired. Do you hear me? I'll make sure you never work another event in this city. Mrs. Winters arrived. Full of apologies and promises to cover cleaning costs, I stood frozen, watching my life crumble in front of me. Without this job, I couldn't pay rent, couldn't cover my mother's hospital bills, couldn't survive. Then enough, Vanessa. Adriano's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. He hadn't raised it, but the quiet authority silenced everyone. Accidents happen. Look what she did to my dress. Vanessa protested, though her tone softened under his gaze. Adriano's expression didn't change. Mr. Reynolds will take you to have it cleaned. I believe the hotel has facilities. One of his men stepped forward immediately, gesturing politely for Vanessa to follow. She hesitated, anger simmering, but obeyed. Mrs. Winters, Adriano continued, voice pleasant yet leaving no room for refusal. Your staff appears overworked tonight. Perhaps Miss Brennan could use a short break to compose herself. Mrs. Winters blinked rapidly, thrown off balance. Of course, Mr. Costello. Eliza, take 15 minutes in the staff room. 15 minutes instead of being fired. I was being given mercy or something that looked like it. Thank you, I mumbled, backing away, feeling Adriano's eyes follow me across the room. In the quiet of the staff lounge, I splashed cold water on my face, careful not to ruin my makeup further. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. That woman, Vanessa, could still ruin me if she wanted to, and even if she didn't, the humiliation would follow me everywhere. When I returned to the ballroom, expecting to be demoted to dishwashing duty, Mrs. Winters intercepted me with a strange expression. Eliza, you're wanted in the East Wing. The East Wing, I echoed. That was where the hotel's private suites were located, reserved for the most exclusive guests. Why? Mr. Costello has requested your services for the remainder of the evening personally. I slid down my spine. What services? Serving drinks to his private party, Mrs. Winters clarified, though her eyes held concern. I told him we couldn't spare staff, but he was insistent. Said he'd pay triple your normal rate for the inconvenience. Triple. The number echoed in my head. That would cover next week's hospital bill with enough left for groceries. You don't have to go, Mrs. Winters added quietly. I can find someone else. But we both knew that wasn't true. No one said no to Adriano Costello, not Mrs. Winters, not the hotel, and certainly not a struggling server with mounting debts. It's fine, I said, forcing confidence into my voice. I'll go. She nodded, relief and worry battling in her expression. Suite 512. Take the service elevator. Then, almost as an afterthought, Eliza, be careful. The ride to the 5th floor felt eternal. Each soft ping of the passing floors marked one step closer to something I couldn't name. Fear. Yes, but also curiosity. A dangerous pull toward the unknown. The hallway of the East Wing was hushed, thick carpeting muffling my footsteps. I found Suite 512 and raised my hand to knock, pausing to draw a steadying breath before I could touch the wood. The door swung open. One of his security men stood there, his expression unreadable as his gaze swept over me. Miss Brennan. Not a question. A statement. They were expecting me. He stepped aside, allowing me to enter. The suite was larger than my entire apartment, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the glittering skyline, leather furniture, soft jazz humming from invisible speakers. Several men in suits were scattered about, some deep in quiet conversation, others glancing up at my arrival with varying degrees of interest. And there, by the window, stood Adriano Costello, his back to the room. Even from behind, his presence filled the space. He turned as I entered, those dark eyes finding mine immediately. Miss Brennan, he said, gesturing me forward. Thank you for joining us. As I approached, every instinct warned me I was walking into something I couldn't escape. The air felt charged with unspoken expectations. You seem nervous, Adriano observed, his voice low, meant only for me. The suite hummed with subdued conversation and the clink of crystal tumblers, yet it felt like we were alone. I'm not sure why I'm here, I admitted, hating how small my voice sounded. A faint smile touched his lips. To serve drinks, as Mrs. Winters told you. He gestured toward the private bar set up in the corner. My associates prefer whiskey to champagne. Can you manage that? Relief washed through me. Just drinks. Normal server duties. Of course, I said quickly. Good. He stepped closer, and I caught the scent of him, expensive cologne with notes of sandalwood and something darker, more primal. And perhaps, he added softly, to satisfy my curiosity. Before I could ask what he meant, he turned away, addressing one of his men. Dismissed. I retreated to the bar, focusing on the familiar rhythm of pouring whiskey, the bottles gleaming amber in the light. Through quick, cautious glances, I studied the room. These weren't mere businessmen. The way they deferred to Adriano, the alertness in their posture made it clear. They were his subordinates. His soldiers. I circulated with a tray of whiskey, offering fresh drinks, collecting empties. The men barely noticed me, their conversation slipping into Italian when I drew near. Fragments of shipments, territories, arrangements, things I didn't understand and didn't want to point. One man, younger than the rest, with sharp features and hungry eyes, tracked my movements too closely. When I handed him a drink, his fingers brushed mine deliberately. Grazie bella, he murmured, his gaze traveling down my uniform in a way that made my skin crawl. I pulled back only to bump into someone behind me. A solid chest. The faint scent of sandalwood. Marco, Adriano said quietly, one hand resting lightly on my shoulder. Miss Brennan is here to serve drinks, not to be harassed. The younger man. Marco froze. His expression flickered between defiance and fear before settling into a tight smile. Of course. My apologies. Adriano's hand lingered on my shoulder a heartbeat longer before he stepped away, Returning to his conversation by the windows, the protective gesture confused me. Was it concern or possession? The next hour passed in a blur of whiskey and whispered deals that I tried to be invisible again, but I could feel his presence always, his attention brushing against me even when he didn't look my way. When most of the men had departed, only Adriano, Marco, and 2 guards remained. The atmosphere shifted less business, more personal tension. "Get us another drink, would you, Bella?" Marco called lazily from the sofa. His earlier reprimand already forgotten, I poured whiskey over fresh ice and carried it to him. That he patted the seat beside him. "Sit. Take a break." "I should sit," he repeated, his tone hardening. That I perched stiffly at the far edge, hands clasped tightly in my lap. "So," Marco drawled, sipping his drink, "what's a pretty girl like you doing serving drinks? Shouldn't you be at university or something?" "I was," I said quietly. "Had to drop out." "Let me guess, money?" I nodded, not elaborating on hospital bills or the second mortgage. "I could help with that," Marco said, sliding closer. "Pretty girl like you, there are better ways to make money than carrying trays all night." My stomach clenched. "I should check if Mr. Costello needs anything." Marco's hand clamped around my wrist, hard enough to hurt. "Don't be rude, Bella. I'm offering to help you." "The lady said no, Marco." Adriano's voice cut through the room like ice. He hadn't turned from the window, hadn't raised his tone, but the command was absolute. Marco released my wrist instantly, forcing a laugh. "We were just talking, Adriano. Getting to know each other." Adriano turned then, expression unreadable. "Miss Brennan, would you join me for a moment?" It wasn't a request. That I rose, relief flooding through me as I crossed the room. Behind me, I heard Marco mutter something in Italian too low to catch. "Ignore him," Adriano said. "Marco has impulse control issues. It's why he'll never advance beyond his current position." He said it loud enough for Marco to hear, a public rebuke that made the younger man's face flush with humiliation. "Walk with me," Adriano added, gesturing to the far side of the suite. That I hesitated, glancing toward the door, the only visible exit. "Just to the balcony," he clarified, reading my fear. "Where the security cameras can see us, if that makes you feel safer." It didn't, not really, but refusing him felt impossible. I followed him through the adjoining master bedroom to a private balcony. The cool night air swept over us, clearing the haze of smoke and whiskey below. The city stretched endlessly, its lights shimmering like a sea of false stars. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Adriano said, his accent thickening slightly. "I've always loved this city, even when it tried to destroy me." I didn't know how to respond, so I stayed silent, keeping a careful distance. Then he turned toward me, his eyes softer than before. "Why did you have to drop out of university, Eliza?" "My mother got sick," I said. "Cancer. The insurance, it wasn't enough." Adriano nodded, unsurprised. "The American healthcare system, so civilized, so brutal." He studied me, as if trying to read every line of pain written on my face. "And your father?" "Gone. Left when I was 12. It's just me taking care of her now." "She's in a care facility?" "Yes. The treatments are experimental, but they're working. She has a chance." He looked away toward the city lights. "Noble," he murmured. "Family is everything. Those who abandon it, men like your father, deserve nothing but contempt." The vehemence in his voice surprised me. For a moment, the mask slipped, revealing something raw beneath that control. Then it was gone. "What were you studying?" he asked, changing the subject. "Nursing," I said, a bitter smile tugging at my lips. "Dropping out of nursing school to pay for medical care." "You want to help people?" "I want to make enough money to live." He laughed, unexpectedly genuine. "Practical. I like that." His gaze returned to the skyline. "Do you know who I am, Eliza?" My heart pounded. "Everyone knows who you are, Mr. Costello." "Adriano," he corrected. "And what is it that everyone knows?" I swallowed hard. That you're influential. That your business interests are diverse. He chuckled softly. A diplomatic answer. Most would say I'm a criminal. A monster who profits from suffering. Is that what you think? I hesitated, every instinct screaming to lie, but something in his eyes demanded honesty. I think good and evil aren't as simple as people want them to be. Sometimes surviving means making difficult choices. For the first time, his expression shifted, genuine surprise flickering across his face. He studied me for a long moment, the silence between us alive and charged. Then, quietly, I have a proposition for you. My stomach dropped. I'm not what you're thinking, he interrupted, a hint of amusement in his voice. I need someone to help manage my household affairs. My previous assistant recently departed under unfortunate circumstances. The way he said it made my skin prickle. I need someone organized, discreet, and unconnected to my other business interests. Someone who understands the value of loyalty. His eyes locked on mine. The position pays $15,000 a month, plus full medical coverage including your mother's treatments at the best facility in the country. The number hit me like a physical blow. What would I have to do? I asked, hating how tempted I already was. Manage my schedule, coordinate household staff, handle correspondence, accompany me to social functions. Nothing illegal. Nothing that would compromise your principles. I didn't believe him. Couldn't. There had to be a catch. Why me? You don't know anything about me. I know enough, he said simply. And I'm rarely wrong about people. The wind picked up, sending a chill through my thin uniform. Adriano noticed. In one smooth motion, he shrugged off his jacket and draped it over my shoulders before I could protest. You don't have to answer now, he said, sliding a card from the inside pocket and handing it to me. Think about it. Call this number when you decide. I took it, automatically heavy cardstock, embossed with a single phone number. No name. And if I say no? His expression didn't change, but his eyes cooled. Then you continue serving drinks and falling behind on your mother's bills until they move her to a state facility where she'll receive minimal care and die within 6 months. The brutal precision of his words stole my breath. How do you? I make it my business to know things, Eliza. He stepped closer, voice low. I can be a powerful friend or a terrible enemy. The choice is yours. Words failed me. This wasn't a choice, it was coercion wrapped in velvet. Then the balcony door opened. One of his guards stepped out. Sir, Mr. Donovan is on the line. Says it's urgent. Adriano's jaw tightened. Tell him I'll call back in 5 minutes. The guard nodded and retreated. I should get back to work, I said quickly, seizing the interruption as escape. I reached to remove his jacket, but his hand stopped mine. Keep it for now. You can return it when you come to give me your answer. I haven't agreed to anything. Not yet, he said, confidence absolute. But you will. That night, I left the Belmont Hotel with Adriano Costello's jacket wrapped around me like a shroud, his business card burning a hole in my pocket, and the weight of an impossible decision pressing down on my heart. The city bus rumbled beneath me as I stared out the window, Adriano Costello's jacket wrapped tightly around my shoulders, his business card burned a hole in my pocket, the embossed numbers whispering temptation and terror in equal measure. $15,000 a month. The figure echoed in my mind over and over, dazzling and damning all at once. With that kind of money, I could move Mom to the private facility. Her doctors had recommended the one with the experimental treatments showing promising results. I could pay off our debts. Maybe even return to school someday. But at what cost? To tie my life to him, a man whose empire was built on blood and fear. When the bus jolted to a stop, I stepped into the rain. The expensive fabric of Adriano's jacket repelled the water easily, while my cheap shoes soaked through within seconds. Even his clothes were a reminder of the distance between our worlds. My apartment building loomed ahead, a 5-story walk-up with peeling paint and doors that never quite locked right. That I trudged up 4 flights of stairs, every muscle aching from the long night, and let myself into the tiny one-bedroom space that passed for home. The air smelled faintly of mildew. The sofa sagged under its own weight, but it was mine at least for now. I hung Adriano's jacket carefully on the back of a kitchen chair, then collapsed onto the couch, too exhausted to even remove my shoes. The night replayed behind my eyelids. The spilled champagne. Vanessa's rage. Adriano's dark eyes and his quiet, lethal confidence. That impossible offer. The shrill ring of my phone startled me awake. Gray light seeped through thin curtains. Dawn. Hello? I croaked, still half asleep. Eliza Brennan? The voice on the other end was male, clipped, professional. Yes, this is Dr. Abernathy from Sunset Care Center. I'm calling about your mother, Catherine Brennan. My heart stopped. What happened? Is she okay? She's stable, he assured me quickly. But we've had to adjust her medication protocol. The cancer has shown some progression in her lymph nodes. I closed my eyes, trying to steady my breathing. What does that mean? It means we need to be more aggressive with treatment, he said gently. I'd like to start her on a new immunotherapy regimen, but, he hesitated. It's not covered by your current insurance plan. Of course it wasn't. Nothing that might actually help ever was. How much? The initial treatment cycle would be approximately $27,000. With follow-up care, you're looking at around $40,000 for the first 3 months. The room tilted. $40,000. It might as well have been $4 million. Miss Brennan? Are you still there? Yes, I whispered. I'll figure something out. Can we discuss this in person? I'd like to visit Mom today. Of course. I'll be on rounds this afternoon. Come by around 3. When the call ended, I sat motionless, staring at the jacket draped across the chair. The black business card was still tucked in its pocket, waiting. One phone call, I thought, and my problems disappear. One phone call, and I belong to him. By the time I reached Sunset Care Center, the rain had stopped, leaving the sky a dull steel gray. The halls smelled of antiseptic and cafeteria food. Nurses moving briskly from room to room. Mom was sitting up in bed when I entered. Her once vibrant red hair now thin against the white pillow, but her eyes still that deep, laughing green lit up the moment she saw me. There's my girl, she said, opening frail arms. I hugged her gently, careful not to squeeze too hard. How are you feeling today? Oh, you know me, stubborn as ever, she said with a weak smile. How was the fancy party last night? Did you serve champagne to any celebrities? I forced a laugh. No celebrities. Just a bunch of rich people pretending to care about charity. We chatted about trivial things: nurses she liked, the awful hospital food, the book she was reading that I didn't tell her about, Dr. Abernathy's call. Or the $40,000. Or the man who could make it all go away. An hour later, Dr. Abernathy appeared, his kind eyes crinkling above wire-rimmed glasses. Mrs. Brennan, how are we today? Ready to run a marathon? Mom grinned. Let's aim for a walk down the hall first. He chuckled, made a few notes on her chart, then looked at me. Miss Brennan, could we speak privately for a moment? I followed him into the hallway, my stomach sinking. Your mother's cancer is aggressive, he said softly. The standard treatments aren't working as well as we'd hoped. But the new treatment, the immunotherapy, it could help? He nodded. It's shown remarkable success in cases like hers, a 70% response rate in patients with her genetic markers. But without insurance coverage. I'll find the money, I said quickly, though my voice trembled. His expression softened. There are patient assistance programs, but they're oversubscribed and your mother doesn't have that kind of time. The world seemed to narrow, sounds fading until all I could hear was my heartbeat. How long? I whispered. Without more aggressive intervention, 3 months. Maybe 4. He rested a hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry, Miss Brennan. I wish I had better options. 3 months. The words echoed in my skull like a countdown. I returned to Mom's room, forcing a smile, promising lemon squares next visit. I told her I loved her. Then I walked out into the gathering storm, my decision already made. Rain soaked through my clothes before I reached the bus stop. My fingers shook as I pulled Adriano's business card from my wallet. The black numbers gleamed against the gray sky, offering salvation and damnation in one breath. I dialed before I could change my mind. A woman's voice answered on the second ring. Yes. My name is Eliza Brennan. I need to speak with Mr. Costello regarding. I hesitated. He made me an offer last night at the Harrington Gala. A pause. One moment. The line went silent for so long I thought I'd been disconnected. Then his voice, that deep accented calm, wrapped around my name like a memory. Eliza. I'm pleased you called. Rain streamed down my face, indistinguishable from tears. I accept your offer. Another pause. I'm glad to hear it. He sounded unsurprised, as though he'd known all along what my answer would be. I'll send a car for you tomorrow morning at 8. Pack whatever you need for an extended stay. Extended stay? I echoed, alarm cutting through my resignation. You didn't mention living arrangements. The position requires you to be on call at all times. There are private quarters for you at my residence. Is that a problem? Yes, I wanted to scream. But thinking of Mom, of those 3 months that could become years, I swallowed hard. No problem, I said instead. Good. We'll discuss details tomorrow. And Eliza, I think you've made a wise choice. The line went dead. That night I packed my life into 2 suitcases. Clothes. A few books. The framed photo of Mom and me before she got sick. I called Mrs. Winters to resign. Ignoring her worried questions, I paid my overdue rent and arranged for the rest of my things to go into storage. By morning, I had effectively erased my old existence. When the sleek black Bentley arrived at 8 sharp, I stood by the curb in the rain, clutching my luggage. The driver, a stone-faced man who introduced himself only as Frank, loaded my bags into the trunk. Where are we going? I asked softly. Mr. Costello's primary residence, he replied without looking at me. In Westridge Heights. Westridge Heights. The hilltop enclave of the city's richest, where old money and power hid behind iron gates. The car pulled away, leaving my crumbling apartment building shrinking in the distance. My world, everything I'd known, disappeared behind a curtain of rain. And ahead, waiting like destiny itself, was Adriano Costello. The drive to Westridge Heights felt endless. Rain streaked across the tinted windows as the city's gray sprawl faded into manicured hills and iron gates. When the car finally slowed, I saw it, his world. A sprawling estate of dark stone and glass perched atop a hill, surrounded by ancient oaks and high walls crowned with security cameras. The iron gates opened soundlessly at our approach, the sleek black Bentley gliding through as if the world itself bent to Adriano Costello's command. The driver parked before an entrance lined with marble pillars. The door swung open before I could reach for the handle. A woman stood waiting, tall, elegant, her silver hair pinned into a chignon that gleamed under the porch light. Her expression was unreadable. Miss Brennan, welcome. I'm Sophia Costello, she said, voice calm and clipped. Adriano's aunt. I managed the household. Her handshake was firm, her eyes sharp, assessing me in the same way security cameras might. Mr. Costello is currently in a meeting. He asked me to get you settled. Follow me. The foyer swallowed me whole. High ceilings stretched overhead, adorned with chandeliers of crystal and iron. The air smelled faintly of cedar and something sterile, order perhaps. As we walked, I glimpsed oil paintings along the corridor, portraits of men and women with familiar dark eyes, all bearing the same quiet power. You'll find that this household functions with precision, Sophia said as she led me up the grand staircase. Breakfast is at 7. Dinner is served at 8. You'll have your own quarters on the east side. She paused to glance back at me. You'll be expected to remain within the main residence unless instructed otherwise. The West Wing is off limits. Do you understand? Yes, ma'am, I replied quietly. You'll report directly to me for household matters, and to Mr. Costello for everything else. Confidentiality is paramount here. We passed a large window that overlooked the back garden and immaculate landscape of stone fountains and trimmed hedges. Beyond that, I could see the faint glow of the city below. We don't tolerate curiosity, Miss Brennan, Sophia continued. It's a dangerous trait in this house. Her tone wasn't cruel, but matter-of-fact, the way one might warn a child not to touch fire. I understand. At last, she opened a door at the end of the east hallway. Your quarters. There's a wardrobe, private bath, and workspace. If you need anything, use the intercom. Mr. Costello prefers efficiency. I stepped inside. The room was larger than my entire apartment. Cream walls, a plush bed, silk curtains that whispered in the breeze from an unseen vent. Everything was perfect. Sterile. Controlled. Sophia lingered in the doorway. I don't know why he brought you here, she said finally. But my nephew does not bring women into his household without purpose. If you value your safety, Miss Brennan, remember that. Before I could respond, she turned and left, the click of her heels fading down the hall. I sank onto the bed, heart pounding. The silence pressed in so heavy, so absolute that even the sound of my own breathing seemed intrusive. On the nightstand sat a folded note, written in precise handwriting. Your mother's transfer to Blackwell Medical Center has been completed. All costs covered. She is receiving the best care available. Ici. I reread the words twice, disbelief and gratitude warring in my chest. He did it. Without another thought, I grabbed my phone and called the care center. Blackwell Medical Center, this is reception. Yes, my name's Eliza Brennan. My mother, Catherine Brennan, she was transferred there. Yes, ma'am, the nurse interrupted kindly. She arrived an hour ago. She's been admitted and is resting comfortably. Everything was arranged by Mr. Costello's office. Thank you, I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. When I hung up, I pressed the phone to my chest, overwhelmed. He'd done more in one morning than I could have managed in years. But why? Before I could dwell on the thought, there was a soft knock on the door. I jumped. Yes. A young woman in uniform entered, bowing her head slightly. Mr. Costello requests your presence in his study after dinner. 8 sharp. Miss Sophia asked me to remind you of the dress code. Formal attire. Thank you, I said, my voice barely audible. As she left, I turned toward the wardrobe. Inside hung an array of dresses, silk, tailored, far beyond anything I'd ever owned. All in muted shades of black, ivory, and deep burgundy. Each tagged discreetly with my name. My pulse quickened. This wasn't hospitality. It was preparation. I stood before the mirror, fingers brushing the fabric of a black satin dress. It fit perfectly, though I had never been measured. By 8 o'clock, I was standing outside his study, nerves twisting like wire beneath my skin. The heavy oak door opened soundlessly. Adriano was seated behind a mahogany desk, the room illuminated by the golden glow of a single lamp. He looked up from a document and gestured for me to enter. You're settling in well, I trust? Yes. Thank you for arranging my mother's transfer. I don't know how to. He raised a hand, stopping me. No gratitude necessary. You'll earn every dollar I spend. Seat. I obeyed, perching on the edge of the leather chair opposite him. You'll find that this house runs on order and discretion. There are rules. Break them and you'll find yourself outside these gates before you can blink. Obey them and you'll have no reason to regret your decision. Understood? Yes, Mr. Costello. His gaze lingered sharp, unreadable. Adriano, he corrected softly. When we're alone, you'll call me Adriano. I nodded, throat dry. Adriano. Something flickered behind his eyes. Satisfaction, maybe. Good. Now let's discuss your duties. He slid a folder across the desk. Inside were lists of contacts, schedules, coded documents, the intricate machinery of a world I didn't understand. You'll manage correspondence, household coordination, and my daily calendar. You'll also accompany me to events when necessary. You'll be compensated accordingly. I'll do my best, I said quietly. I expect nothing less. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then he leaned back, his tone shifting softer, more intimate. Sophia told me she warned you. About what? Me. This house. The danger you think you're in. I hesitated, unsure how to answer. He smiled faintly. She means well. But she forgets that danger isn't always something to be feared. Sometimes it's a choice. Sometimes it's the only way forward. He rose, walking to the window where rain still streaked the glass. The city glittered far below. You made your choice, Eliza. Now live with it. Learn its rules. Survive it. He turned back, eyes dark and steady. Welcome to my world. The next few days passed in a blur of new routines and quiet unease. True to Sophia's word, a car took me shopping where an imperious personal stylist helped select an entire wardrobe of designer business attire, tailored suits, silk blouses, and formal gowns for evening events. The total cost could have paid my rent for a year. Every purchase was made with a sleek black credit card embossed with Adriano Costello's name. No prices discussed. No limits mentioned. I learned my duties quickly, managing Adriano's calendar, screening calls, preparing documents, coordinating household staff. The work wasn't hard, just precise, demanding perfection. Adriano expected efficiency but rewarded competence with subtle nods of approval that, for reasons I couldn't explain, I found myself craving. That I saw him daily, usually in his study or during dinner. Our conversations were disarmingly normal. Books, music, philosophy, current events. That he never discussed his business, never took calls in my presence. It was as if two men existed, the ruthless name whispered in fear, and the quiet intellectual who quoted Italian poetry over wine. Sometimes I could almost forget who he really was, until something reminded me. A hushed conversation cut short when I entered. The guards who never left their posts, the guests who arrived through back corridors, unrecorded in any visitor log I kept. A week into my employment, I visited Mom at Blackwell Medical Center. The contrast was staggering. Private rooms with panoramic windows, top-tier nurses, doctors attentive and kind. Mom looked better than she had in months. Her eyes were bright again, some color had returned to her cheeks. This place is amazing, Lizzie, she said, gesturing to the room. But how on earth are we affording it? I'd rehearsed my answer. I got a new job. Executive assistant to a businessman. The benefits are incredible. Must be some businessman, she said, raising an eyebrow. What's his name? What company? Adriano Costello, I answered, deciding honesty was safer than a lie she could uncover later. He owns several enterprises: import, export, real estate, hospitality. Her smile faltered. Costello. I've read about him. Isn't he? Her voice dropped. They say he has connections. Dangerous ones. It's just a job, Mom, I said quickly, forcing a smile. And it's giving you the care you need. That's all that matters. She squeezed my hand, eyes full of concern. Just be careful, sweetheart. Men like that don't give something for nothing. Her words echoed Sophia's warning, both women sensing danger where I tried not to look. But watching Mom smile again, seeing hope return to her face, I pushed every doubt aside. Whatever his motives, Adriano had given her a chance at life. That had to mean something. Saturday arrived with a chill in the air and an invitation on Adriano's desk: the Blackwell Medical Center Charity Gala. That evening, I stood before the full-length mirror in my room. The dress Sophia had selected, deep emerald silk, sleek, elegant, clung to me like a second skin. It was the kind of gown that transformed a person, That made the girl who once served champagne disappear. A knock at the door startled me. When I opened it, Adriano stood there in a black tuxedo, impossibly composed. His dark eyes swept over me. For a moment he said nothing. Then, "You look beautiful." He crept up my neck. "Thank you. You look very nice as well." A small smile touched his lips. "Amusement, maybe." "Are you ready? The car is waiting." The gala was even grander than the one at the Belmont Hotel, held in the Blackwell Center's vast atrium. Beneath a glass ceiling that reflected the chandelier light like stars, the evening was a spectacle of wealth. An orchestra played softly as donors and dignitaries mingled. Only this time, I wasn't serving drinks, I was on Adriano's arm. "Mr. Costello, how wonderful to see you again," gushed a silver-haired woman dripping in diamonds. "Your contribution to our pediatric wing has been transformative." "The children deserve the best care, Mrs. Hartwell," Adriano replied smoothly. He turned slightly toward me. "May I introduce Eliza Brennan? She's recently joined my staff." "Lovely to meet you, dear," Mrs. Hartwell said, her smile polite but curious. "And what exactly do you do for Mr. Costello?" Before I could speak, Adriano's hand settled at the small of my back. "Eliza manages my personal affairs. She's proving quite invaluable." Mrs. Hartwell's eyebrows arched. Her smile deep and knowing, judgmental. "How wonderful. I'm sure she is." As we moved away, I could feel her gaze and others lingering. Everywhere we went, people stared, whispered, speculated. They all thought I was his mistress. "You're tense," Adriano murmured beside me. "Are you uncomfortable?" I met his eyes. "Everyone thinks I'm sleeping with you," I said bluntly. Instant regret followed. To my surprise, Adriano laughed quietly, genuinely. "Does that bother you?" "Shouldn't it?" He sipped his champagne, eyes glinting with amusement. "People will always talk, Eliza. Their opinions only matter if you let them. It's different for you. You're a man. Your reputation isn't damaged by whispers like these." "True," he admitted. "The double standard persists even among the powerful. Would you prefer I correct their misconceptions?" I hesitated. Would I? The idea of him declaring publicly that I was only an employee made something inside me tighten. "No," I said finally. "It doesn't matter what they think." His gaze softened. "Now you're learning." Later that night, I spotted a familiar face across the ballroom. Vanessa. The woman whose crimson gown I'd ruined at the Harrington Gala. Her ice blue eyes locked on mine, burning with recognition and hostility. "What's wrong?" Adriano asked quietly. "The woman in the red dress. Vanessa. From the Harrington event." Understanding dawned in his expression. "Vanessa Moretti. Marco's sister." "Marco? The man from your suite that night?" He nodded. "A distant cousin. Their family has ties to mine." Vanessa was already approaching. Her smile was all teeth. "Adriano, what a pleasant surprise," she purred, kissing his cheek. Her gaze slid to me, sharp as a blade. "And your server? How quaint." "Eliza is my personal assistant now," Adriano said smoothly. His tone pleasant but edged with steel. "How fortunate for her," Vanessa replied. "Moving up in the world so quickly, one wonders what special skills she possesses." My cheeks burned. Before I could respond, Adriano's arm slipped around my waist. "Careful, Vanessa," he said softly. "Your jealousy is showing." Her perfect smile cracked for a second. "Jealous? Don't be ridiculous. Then I suggest you show Miss Brennan the respect she deserves as a valued member of my household," Adriano said. "Unless you prefer your brother lost his position as well." Vanessa's face paled. Her voice tightened. "Of course. My apologies if I've offended. I'm sure she's quite competent." "She is," Adriano replied evenly. "Now, if you'll excuse us." He guided me away, his hand steady on my back. "I apologize for Vanessa," he said once we were clear. She's been trying to secure a position in my household for years. A position? Or a position in your bed? The question slipped out before I could stop. ITTO my shock. Adriano laughed again, low and rich. Perhaps both. Her family values alliances through marriage. The thought of him with Vanessa, cold, cruel, perfect, made something dark twist inside me. And what are your views on marriage? He met my gaze, something unreadable flickering there. In my world, marriage is rarely about love, Eliza. It's about power, legacy, continuation of the family line. He paused. But I've never been one to follow tradition blindly. Before I could ask more, a commotion rippled through the ballroom. Security converged near the entrance, discreet but tense. A man was arguing with the event staff. Adriano's expression hardened. Wait here, he said, already striding toward the disturbance. I watched as he approached the man, calm, composed, and spoke quietly to the security team. After a short exchange, the man was escorted out a side door. When Adriano returned, his face was unreadable. Is everything all right? I asked. A minor business matter, he said smoothly. Nothing for you to concern yourself with. But later in the car, I noticed the tension in his jaw. The way his fingers tightened around his phone. That man at the gala, I said softly. It wasn't minor, was it? He glanced at me, assessing. You're observant. A valuable trait, though occasionally inconvenient. If I'm to manage your affairs, shouldn't I know when something's wrong? He sighed, pocketing his phone. Some matters are better kept separate from your duties. For your own protection. Protection from what? There are aspects of my business that operate in gray areas, he said. Competitors with fewer scruples than myself. Authorities with flexible loyalties. The less you know, the safer you are. The tacit confession hung heavy between us. For the first time, he had acknowledged it, the darker side of his empire. The rest of the drive from the gala was silent. By the time we reached the mansion, the night had settled heavy and cold. Adriano didn't speak again until we reached the grand staircase. Good night, Eliza, he said quietly, pausing at my door. Remember, discretion isn't just courtesy in my household. It's survival. I nodded, the weight of his words pressing against my ribs. I understand, I whispered. He studied my face for a long moment. Do you regret your decision to accept my offer? Images flashed through my mind. Mom laughing softly in her hospital bed at Blackwell. The security of knowing she was safe, cared for, alive. No, I said honestly. I don't regret it. Something eased in his expression, almost relief. Good, because despite what Sophia or others might imply, I didn't bring you here on a whim or for unsavory reasons. He hesitated, searching my eyes. I recognize something in you, Eliza, a strength beneath the fear. A loyalty that can't be bought but, once earned, never breaks. His voice softened, his hand lifting to brush a stray lock of hair from my face. The touch was careful, almost reverent. And because, he said quietly, I see myself in you. The person I might have been under different circumstances. The gesture left a heat blooming beneath my skin. When he stepped back, the air felt colder for the space he left behind. Good night, Eliza, he murmured, retreating down the hall. I stood there long after he was gone, fingers ghosting over the spot his hand had touched. Something was shifting, something dangerous and inevitable. Weeks passed. Routine dulled the edges of my anxiety, but not my awareness of how precarious my position truly was. I managed Adriano's affairs, attended dinners, arranged meetings. We'd grown closer, his trust unmistakable, his attention constant, and yet, beneath it all, I could feel the tension of something waiting to break. Then, one evening, it did. I was in his study, reviewing his schedule for an upcoming trip to Chicago, when the doors burst open. Marco stormed in. His face was flushed rage or fear, or both, and his eyes darted briefly to me before fixing on Adriano. He spoke in rapid Italian, sharp and heated, I caught only fragments. Problema. Isha. Adriano's expression darkened with every word. He replied in Italian, low and controlled. Then he turned to me. Eliza, you should retire for the evening. We have business to discuss. Of course, I said, gathering my notes. But before I could leave, Marco's voice cut through the room like glass. She shouldn't be here anyway. You know what happened with the last one who knew too much. I froze. Enough, Marco, Adriano snapped. Miss Brennan has my complete trust. Marco laughed bitterly. Like Antonio did before he started talking to the feds? The name hit me like a physical blow. Antonio, the previous assistant. Adriano's jaw tightened. Our eyes met and I knew he saw the realization in mine. Eliza, he began, but I was already backing away. I should go, I said quickly, my voice barely steadied. I fled down the hall, heart pounding so hard it drowned out my footsteps. Back in my quarters, I sat on the edge of my bed, trembling. Antonio, the assistant who had left under unfortunate circumstances. Had he betrayed Adriano? Had Adriano dealt with him? I didn't want to know. And yet I needed to. A soft knock at my door an hour later confirmed what I already knew. He would come. When I opened the door, Adriano stood there, his face carved in shadow. May I come in? I stepped aside silently. He crossed the room slowly, his movements measured. You heard something tonight that disturbed you, he said. Antonio, I managed. He was informing on you to the FBI. Adriano nodded once. Yes. And what happened to him? I asked, bracing for an answer I didn't want. He hesitated, then said simply. He's alive. Living under a new identity in Arizona, last I heard. I blinked. You let him go? After he betrayed you? Adriano turned toward the window, the faint light tracing the scar along his cheek. I'm not the monster the papers make me out to be, Eliza. He paused, his reflection cold and distant against the glass. Antonio was young. Afraid. The FBI threatened his family. I understood his choice even if I couldn't allow him to remain in my organization. I studied his profile, struggling to reconcile that mercy with the man I'd seen command fear from everyone around him. Why are you telling me this? He turned back to me, eyes dark and steady. Because I want you to understand who I really am, not who the world says I am. Yes, I've operated outside the law. Yes, I've done things I'm not proud of. But there are lines I don't cross. Principles I don't compromise. Like not killing informants? I asked quietly. He shook his head. Like not hurting those who act out of love for their family, he corrected. Antonio betrayed me to protect his parents. I respect that loyalty above all else. He stepped closer, his gaze never wavering. It's the same loyalty I saw in you the night you stood on that balcony, willing to break every rule just to breathe. The loyalty that made you sacrifice everything for your mother. The sincerity in his voice disarmed me. For the first time. I saw not the crime lord, not the myth, just the man. Why did you really hire me, Adriano? I asked, barely above a whisper. He hesitated, then smiled faintly. The truth? I told you before. I recognized something in you. A reflection. He moved closer. Close enough for me to smell the faint mix of sandalwood and smoke. But there's more. His voice lowered. From the moment I saw you on that balcony, I felt something I hadn't in years. Connection. A possibility. My heart thudded painfully. A possibility of what? Of not being alone, he said simply. Of being understood. Of finding someone who sees me, the real me, and doesn't turn away. His vulnerability cracked something inside me. All the walls I'd built, all the fear I'd carried, they shattered. I see you, I whispered. And I'm still here. Something in his eyes shifted, hope, wonder, desire. He reached out slowly, giving me time to retreat. I didn't. His hand cupped my cheek. Eliza. He breathed, my name, a question and a prayer. I answered with a kiss, soft at first, then hungry, inevitable. When we broke apart, breathless, he pressed his forehead to mine. Do you understand what this means? He murmured. To be with me. I did. It meant stepping across a line I could never uncross. I understand, I said. I choose you. All of you. He smiled, then truly smiled. Then I am yours. And you are mine. La mia regina. My queen. Protected. Cherished. Never again alone. In his arms, surrounded by the pulse of danger and devotion, I felt the last of my hesitation fade. The path that began with spilled champagne had led me here to a man who could destroy me, or save me, and somehow I already knew he would do both. Morning light spilled across the marble floor of the Castello mansion. The world outside was quiet, unaware that everything had already changed within its walls. Eliza woke before dawn, the taste of last night still lingering, not just the kiss, but the unspoken truth behind it. There was no turning back now. She rose and walked toward the balcony where Adriano stood, dressed in black, the city glowing faintly beneath the fog. He didn't turn as she approached, but his voice found her all the same. Do you regret it? He asked softly. No, she said. I regret nothing. He nodded once, the faintest smile tracing his lips. Good. Because from this moment on, you are part of my world for better or worse. She hesitated. And what does that mean exactly? Adriano finally faced her. The dawn caught the silver in his eyes, the exhaustion, the longing. It means your mother's care will continue. No one will touch her. No one will touch you. It means loyalty goes both ways now. I protect what's mine. Her heart trembled. And if I ever stopped believing in you? He stepped closer, his hand brushing her jaw, not in anger, but with quiet conviction. Then I would let you walk away. But you won't. Because you see me, Eliza, the way no one else ever has. And that is a kind of power I can't fight. She looked up at him, the man who had torn her life apart just by entering it, and somehow, piece by piece, had built something new in its place. Then I'll stay, she whispered. Not because I have to, but because I choose to. Something flickered behind his eyes, relief, disbelief, a glimmer of something dangerously close to peace. He took her hand and pressed it to his chest. Beneath her palm, his heartbeat was steady, strong, human. From this day, Eliza Brennan, I swear to you no harm will come to you or those you love while I still draw breath. She swallowed hard. That sounds like a vow. It is, he said. My Wort is my Bund. My oath. My destiny. Outside, the first light of morning broke through the clouds. The world beyond the glass was waking, unaware that inside, a queen had just been crowned. In silence, Eliza stood beside him, her hand still in his, the city reflected in their eyes. Whatever the future held, betrayal, redemption, or ruin, she no longer belonged to fear. She belonged to herself and perhaps, just perhaps, to him. My favorite part was when Eliza looked him in the eyes and said, I choose you. Not because I have to, but because I want to. That moment proved she had reclaimed her power, not as a victim, but as a woman who finally decided her own destiny. What was your favorite moment of justice in her story? Drop it in the comments below. I'd love to hear what moved you most. Don't miss more powerful stories of love, revenge, and redemption. Subscribe to Desire Tales and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. And never forget, every choice has a price, but sometimes it's worth everything.